Section 17 of Selected Letters of Beethoven. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Selected letters numbers 317, 318, 321, 325, 328 through 335, and 337 through 340 by Ludwig van Beethoven. As compiled and with footnotes by Dr. Ludwig Knoll and translated by Lady Grace Wallace. Letter number 317, to Schindler. My very best Optimus Optime, pray try to hunt out a philanthropist who will advance me some money on a bank share, that I may not put the generosity of my friends too much to the test, nor myself be placed in difficulty by the delay of this money, for which I have to thank the fine plans and arrangements of my precious brother. You must not let it appear that this money is really wanted. End of letter number 317. Letter number 318, to Schindler. Dear Schindler, don't forget the bank share. It is greatly needed. It would be very annoying to be brought into court. Indeed, I would not be so for the whole world. My brother's conduct is quite worthy of him. The tailor is appointed to come today. Still, I hope to be able to get rid of him for the present by a few polite phrases. End of letter number 318. Letter number 321, to Schindler. Footnote 1. Dear Schindler, I am not sure whether the other copy was corrected or not, so I send you this one instead. As to N in S blank, I beg you not to say a word. BL is already very uneasy on the subject. In haste, your friend, Beethoven. Footnote 1. We cannot understand what induced Beethoven, who lived in the same house with Schindler, to write to him, but he often did so to persons with whom he could easily have spoken, partly in order to get rid of the matter while it was in his thoughts, and also because he was a great deal from home, that is, going backwards and forwards from one lodging to another, having often several at the same time. End of letter number 321. Letter number 325, to Schindler. Imprimis. Papageno, not a word of what I said about Prussia. No reliance is to be placed on it. Martin Luther's table talk alone can be compared to it. I earnestly beg my brother also not to remove the padlock from his lips, and not to allow anything to transpire beyond the Salzfurstgasse. Footnote 1. Finis. Inquire of that arch-churl Diabelli when the French copy of the Sonata in C minor, opus 111, is to be published. I stipulated to have 5 copies for myself, one of which is to be on fine paper, for the Cardinal, note the Archduke Rudolph. If he attempts any of his usual impertinence on this subject, I will sing him, in person, a bass aria in his warehouse, which shall cause it and all the street, note Graben, to ring. Footnote 2. Footnote 1. Schindler relates, quote, the royal decision, note, to subscribe for a copy of the Mass, was brought to Beethoven by the Chancellor of the Embassy, Hofrat Bernhard. Whether Prince Hatzfeld, note, the ambassador, made the following offer from his own impulse or in consequence of a commission from Berlin is not known. At all events, the Hofrat put this question in the name of the prince to the great composer, quote, whether he would be disposed to prefer a royal order to the 50 ducats, end quote, note, the sum demanded for the Mass. Beethoven replied at once, quote, the 50 ducats, end quote. Scarcely had the Chancellor left the room when Beethoven, in considerable excitement, indulged in all kinds of sarcastic remarks on the manner in which many of his contemporaries hunted after orders and decorations, these being, in his estimation, generally gained at the cost of the sanctity of art. End quote. Footnote 2. Schindler relates that Diabelli had refused to let Beethoven again have the manuscript of the sonata, which he had repeatedly sent for when in the hands of the engraver, in order to correct and improve it. Diabelli, therefore, coolly submitted to all of this abuse of the enraged composer, and wrote to him that he would note down the threatened bass aria and publish it, but would give him the usual gratuity for it, and that Beethoven had better come to see him. On this Beethoven said no more. This sonata is dedicated to the Archduke Rudolph, and is also published by Schlesinger. End of letter number 325. Letter number 328, footnote 1, to Schindler. Hetzendorf, 1823. Samothracian vagabond, footnote 2. You must hunt out from Schlemmer, note the copyist, what is still wanting in the Kyrie. Show him the postscript, and so, satis, no more of such a wretch. Farewell, arrange everything. I am to bind up my eyes at night, and to spare them as much as possible. Otherwise, says Smetana, I shall write little more music in the time to come. Footnote 1. "We arrived at Hetzendorf on May 17th," is written by Karl in Beethoven's notebook of 1823, and on this note is written in the scamp's hand, Hetzendorf, 1823. Footnote 2. "By the word Samothracian, Beethoven alludes to the Samothracian mysteries, partly grounded on music. Their mutual participation in the Beethoven mysteries is intended to be thus indicated. Among the initiated were also Brunswick, Lichnowsky, and Zmeskal." Note, from a note of Schindler's on the subject. End of letter number 328. Letter number 329, to Schindler. Hetzendorf, 1823, ? "Pray forward the packet today, and inquire this afternoon, if possible, about the housekeeper in the Glockengasse, number 318, third étage. She is a widow, understands cookery, and is willing to serve merely for board and lodging, to which, of course, I cannot consent, or only under certain conditions. My present one is too shameful. I cannot invite you here, but be assured of my gratitude." End of letter number 329. Letter number 330, to Schindler, footnote 1. Hetzendorf, 1823. "I enclose the letter to Herr von Obrazkov, chargé d'affaires of the Russian legation. As soon as I receive the money, I will immediately send you 50 florins for your trouble, not a word more than is absolutely necessary. I have advertised your house. You can mention, merely as a casual remark at the right moment, that France also remitted the money to you. Never forget that such persons represent majesty itself." Footnote 1. Louis VIII sent a gold medal for his subscription copy of the Mass on February 20th, 1824. End of letter number 330. Letter number 331, to Schindler. "I beg you will kindly write out the enclosed invitation neatly for me on the paper I send you, for Karl has too much to do. I wish to dispatch it early on Wednesday. I want to know where Grillparzer lives. Perhaps I may pay him a visit myself." Footnote 1. "You must have a little patience about the 50 florins. As yet it is impossible for me to send them, for which you are as much to blame as I am." Footnote 1. It is well known that in the winter of 1822–23 Beethoven was engaged in the composition of an opera for the Royal Theatre, for which purpose Grillparzer had given him his Melusina. End of letter number 331. Letter number 332, to Schindler. "I send K's (Kahne's) book (libretto). Except the first act, which is rather insipid, it is written in such a masterly style that it does not by any means require a first-rate composer. I will not say that on this very account it would be the more suitable for me. Still, if I can get rid of previous engagements, who knows what may or will happen? Please acknowledge the receipt of this." End of letter number 332. Letter number 333, to Schindler. "I wish to know about Esterhazy, and also about the post. A letter carrier from the Mauer, a place near Hetzendorf, was here. I only hope the message has been properly delivered. Nothing as yet from Dresden. See number 330. I mean to ask you to dine with me a few days hence, for I still suffer from my weak eyes. Today, however, for the first time, they seem to improve, but I scarcely dare make any use of them as yet. Your friend, Beethoven. P.S. As for the Tokai, footnote 1, it is better adapted for summer than for autumn, and also for some fiddler who could respond to its noble fire, and yet stand firm as a rock. Footnote 1. A musical friend had sent the maestro 6 bottles of genuine Tokai, expressing his wish that it might tend to restore his strength. Schindler, he says, wrote to Beethoven at Hetzendorf to tell him of this, and received the above answer, and the order through Frau Schnaps to do as he pleased with the wine. He sent 1 bottle of it to Hetzendorf, but Beethoven at that time had inflamed eyes. End of letter number 333. Letter number 334, to Schindler. I cannot at present accept these tempting invitations, from Sonntag and Unger. So far as my weak eyes permit, I am very busy, and when it is fine, I go out. I will myself thank these 2 fair ladies for their amiability. No tidings from Dresden. I shall wait till the end of this month, and then apply to a lawyer in Dresden. I will write about Schoberlechner tomorrow. End of letter number 334. Letter number 335, to Schindler. June 18th, 1823. You ought to have perfectly well known that I would have nothing to do with the affair in question. With regard to my being liberal, I think I have shown you that I am so on principle. Indeed, I suspect you must have observed that I even have gone beyond these principles. Sapientia sat. Footnote 1. Footnote 1. Franz Schoberlechner, pianist in Vienna, wrote to Beethoven on June 25, 1823, to ask him for letters of introduction to Leipzig, Dresden, Berlin, and Russia, etc. The maestro, however, wrote across the letter, quote, "An active fellow requires no other recommendation than from one respectable family to another," end quote, and gave it back to Schindler, who showed it to Schoberlechner, and no doubt at his desire urged Beethoven to comply with his request. Beethoven, however, did not know Schoberlechner, and had no very high opinion of him, as he played chiefly bravura pieces, and besides, on the bills of his concerts he pompously paraded all his titles, decorations, and as members of various societies, which gave ample subject for many a sarcastic remark on the part of Beethoven. End of letter number 335. Letter number 337, to Schindler. Hetzendorf, July 1st, 1823. I am myself writing to Wocher, note, cabinet courier to Prince Esterhazy, number 333. And for more speed I send by Karl, who chances to be driving in, the application to Prince E. Be so good as to inquire the result. I doubt its being favourable, not expecting much kindly feeling on his part towards me, judging from former days. Footnote 1. I believe that female influence alone ensures success with him in such matters. At all events, I now know by your obliging inquiries how I can safely write to this Schultz. The bad weather, and more especially the bad atmosphere, prevented my paying her, note, Countess Schafgotsch, a visit about this affair. Footnote 2. Your amicus, Beethoven. P.S. Nothing yet from Dresden. Schlemmer, note, the copyist, has just been here again asking for money. I have now advanced him 70 gulden. Speculations are for commercial men, and not for poor devils like myself. Hitherto the sole fruit of this unlucky speculation, note, a subscription for his mass, are only more debts. You have, no doubt, seen that the Gloria is completed. If my eyes were only strong again, so that I could resume my writing, I should do well enough. Note, written on the cover. Are the variations, note, opus 120, sent off yet to London? Nota bene. So far as I can remember, it was not mentioned in the application to Prince Esterhazy that the Mass was to be delivered in manuscript only. What mischief may ensue from this? I suspect that such was the intention of Herr Artaria in proposing to present the Mass gratis to the Prince, as it would give Artaria an opportunity for the third time to steal one of my works. Wocher's attention must be called to this. Of course, there is nothing obligatory on Papageno in the matter. Footnote 1. Beethoven wrote the Mass in C for him in the year 1807, which was by no means satisfactory to the prince when performed at Eisenstadt in the year following, and conducted by Beethoven himself. Footnote 2. Schultz, music director at Warmbrunn in Silesia, had written a German text for the Mass in C. Beethoven also wished to have from him a German translation from the Latin words adapted to the music of the Grand Mass. Schindler says that the words, quote, "prevented my visiting her," end quote, refer to Countess Schafgotsch, whom Beethoven wished to see on account of Schultz, who unhappily died in the ensuing year. His text, however, is given in the Cecilia, 23-54. End of letter number 337. Letter number 338, to Pilat, editor of the Austrian Observer. Sir, I shall feel highly honoured if you will be so good as to mention in your esteemed journal my nomination as an honorary member of the Royal Swedish Musical Academy. Although neither vain nor ambitious, still I consider it advisable not wholly to pass over such an occurrence, as in practical life we must live and work for others, who may often eventually benefit by it. Forgive my intrusion, and let me know if I can in any way serve you in return, which it would give me much pleasure to do. I am, sir, with high consideration, your obedient Beethoven. End of letter number 338. Letter number 339, to Schindler. Hetzendorf, July, 1823. Most worthy ragamuffin of Epirus and Brundusium, give this letter to the editor of the Observer, but write the address on it first. Ask him at the same time whether his daughter makes great progress on the piano, and if I can be of any use to her by sending her a copy of one of my compositions. I wrote that I was an honorary member, I don't know, however, whether this is correct. Perhaps I ought to have said a corresponding member, neither knowing nor caring much about such things. You had also better say something on the subject to Bernardum non sanctum, note, editor of the Vienna Zeitschrift. Make inquiries, too, from Bernard about that knave Ruprecht. Tell him of this queer business, and find out from him how he can punish the villain. Ask both these philosophical newspaper scribes whether this may be considered an honourable or dishonourable nomination. End of letter number 339. Letter number 340, to Schindler. Master flash in the pan and wide of the mark, full of reasons yet devoid of reason. Everything was ready yesterday for Glaser. Note, the copyist. As for you, I shall expect you in Hetzendorf to dinner at 2:30. If you come later, dinner shall be kept for you. End of letter number 340. End of section 17 of Selected Letters of Beethoven, as compiled and with footnotes by Dr. Ludwig Noll, and translated by Lady Grace Wallace.